It is Tuesday on Raid Shadow Legends, but you knew that. So you pulled a Legate TEOX'S. Did you? Because I didn't. I suppose it was obvious, but if you did, then, well, good for you. If you didn't, don't try and pull for him now because you can't get him, in case you missed that the first time. So, what about him? He's pretty good. Let's just say there's a reason a lot of people are saying he's good because, well, he is good. I'm not going to spend the entire video harping over his skill set because you can read that in all of your own time. But what I will do, because this game seems to refuse to ever show what a skill's damage multipliers do, I will just put them on screen real quick for you, like this, and you can look over them and perhaps cross-reference it against this and realise, yeah, this is pretty good, I think. So now we've got that out of the way, you'll notice that obviously he's faction unity, you knew that, and to get the most bonuses he requires 3 faction allies. So thinking about it now, assuming that we are always going to have 3 faction allies to get the most out of this, which are the best ones for him? So obviously we're going to look for someone who will supply debuffs for him to get all of these extra effects, and while they're applying debuffs, we have this, which means they don't have to worry about being turned into a sheep, which is a pretty good effect to have when the entire game is now completely balanced around polymorph. Don't try and say otherwise, I will think less of you for it. So in that case, we are going to look over all of the Lizardman champions, well, the legendaries, the 1 mythical, and maybe a few epics, and thinking that nothing for these entire other factions exists for Arena, where you only have to use 4 champions, and you can only use 1 for PvE, and 2 more for Hydra. We'll start off with the easiest one, which is Lazarius. Now, Lazarius is Lazarius. If you have him, you use him. I don't need to explain it in any more detail than that. He's still one of the best mythicals in the game. Okay, moving on. Next is Dracomorph. Dracomorph, bit of an old champion, bit outdated nowadays, still good in some places. I still use him in Demon Lords, but his main thing is you build him fast and accurate, you put this on there, then Mr. Legate and also everyone else hopefully kills everything in sight, and if not, you try again in a few turns because obviously Hydra heads come back again, and yeah. Apart from that, this is fine single target but falls off once there's anything more than that, and this is fine, yeah. So yeah, just fast, accurate, and yeah. Next champ is Roxum. Now, Roxum kind of has Dracomorph A3 on a turn longer cooldown, but also does damage, for better or worse. But the champion doesn't supply its own increased attack, like Legate TEOX'S does, and also needs a perfect veil, which either has this, which is half time it doesn't work, or has to use this first, when really you would want to use this when you're under a veil, although obviously if it's something that's immune to sun or sleep, mate, it doesn't really matter. But I think overall this one's kind of competing for the same kills that TEOX'S is, and is probably better off being left at home, unless you really need like a second nuker for Live Arena who is also Lizardman, which in that case I suppose, but it doesn't have a really good matchup spread in my opinion. Next is, okay, a few days ago I said this champion was not very good, and it might be a week ago or so, I'll check the date. And okay, while both these skills still are hilariously underpowered for a legendary, this, now that you can't polymorph off it, is actually pretty good. It's Lady Mikage alts A2 on a turn longer cooldown. It's the exact same thing, but obviously you can't return to a sheep off it. And this now actually works pretty handily. Although I don't know how it works when it comes to champions who revive more than one ally. If it just stuns a first person in the team order, or if it stuns all of them. I'm sure the one person in this entire game who has summoned and built Basafa can let me know in the comments or something, because otherwise I don't know. I never said I was a complete expert on this subject. I never will be. Well, and maybe eventually, but I have to get there, don't I? So, in terms of just having an AoE stun, this is great for anything that can be stunned. Anything that can't, well, you don't bring this champ now, do you? I wouldn't really say, okay, if you get TEOX'S, just immediately slam this champion out of a portal, build him out, because, as I said before, these don't really do a whole lot. I don't know why this is a conditional. They always make these weird conditional effects, and then just remove it afterwards. We've seen it so many times. Vergamkar, Jingguan, etc. They'll do it again. Also, we'll get around to Vergamkar at some point. Fushan, I feel like this and TEOX'S don't really work in the same content, because I've either seen it as just this semi-unreliable stun champ, because this book's up to 35, 40 with fearsome presence. This has been used for those armanz comps that just try and one-shot him, because he gets 25 extra hits off this, and this is still only a single target skill. Like, that's the thing about attacks at random, is they're balanced around everything hitting one target, so anytime there's multiple of them, it's just a bad version of an AoE skill. Speed aura is fine, but I think overall you can probably do better. Like, if you want a stun champion, then I would advocate using Basafa over this, because Basafa keeps itself alive better being a HP champion, and you have more reliable decreased defense than this as well, because again, this is a 75 to 80. Okay, Razin. Okay, the issue here is that this neither runs a polymorph check because it's an instant effect, nor is it a debuff for TEOX'S. So the champions don't really go in the same team, and a single target is, yeah. Like, I could say, okay, great, you have this, and then TEOX'S for Demon Lord, but Demon Lord is the most whatever content in the game. As soon as you are able to one key, there is no reason to ever care about rebuilding anything flat ever again, because they're not going to change Demon Lord unless they just want to annoy people for no reason. I mean, they annoy people for lots of reasons, like mostly trying to get me to spending money, but some of them are a bit too far out there even for them. And also, please give this champion more speed. 91 is just sad. Next is Vargal, Skullard Vargal. Yeah, I'll be quick. You keep this guy in a vault. He's only good for very limited content where you're not allowed to use anything else, and he doesn't do a whole lot at all. And, hang on. Pythian, I mean, do I even need to explain this one? He's still a very solid cleanser, reviver, healer. If you need someone who does all of those and the Lizardman, then great, use him, because there's no Natsuma faction who's anywhere like him at all. So, yeah. Also, fun fact about this one, a while ago, they made this champion as a Pythian counter, which was really strange when, why does Pythian of all champions need a counter? And everyone looked at this A2 and went, ha! Polymorph, and laughed him out of the game. No one fused him at all. And Plarium realised, oh, hang on, maybe there's an issue here regarding polymorph. We'll look into it. And they did, and then, sure, they technically nerfed polymorph, but then they started making the game where you had all these OPD buffers and whatnot, and now polymorph is your only way to not die horribly, so yeah, every champion has it regardless. There was an attempt. Anyway, so yeah, if you have Pythian, you're probably going to be using him. And next is Vergamkar, we almost did it before. Now, I actually like Vergamkar a lot more when it can't just be turned into a sheep, you know, lamb sausages, right? Because it's a sausage, yeah. This 3-turn cooldown, removing buffs and placing these is actually really good. And this is one of those champions I mentioned before, how all of this used to be like conditional, like it would only, I think it only plays with shield if it removes a provoke, and now it just does everything regardless. Of course, TEOX doesn't care too much about an increased defense as a part of a way to not die, because his passive gives him damage reduction, but he supplies his own increased attack, so that's fine. And I mean, even this is okay once you can't get sheeped off it, and you have, I mean, there's not too many provokers around. Like, sure, there's Head of Wrath and a couple bosses, but otherwise you won't see this too much. But this is pretty good, and I would say this is one of the more better ones to build once you have Legate. Although, don't build it beforehand, because there's better options, and you may never get TEOX, because like many faction unities, they show up once or twice, and then they just don't show up again at all. Necromorphar is, you probably have this champion for Hydra already. I do, pretty much anyone does. It was guaranteed at one point, and it was definitely worth it. And I would say that with TEOX in the mix, this becomes a suitable speed booster that can even work in Arena. You have the Aura, you have both of these, and then you have this to slow down the opponent and give up to 3 debuffs for TEOX to nuke the team with. And then you have this again, so all in all, this is already a very good legendary, and it only gets better once you have a guy in the same faction who works perfectly with it. So yeah, this is absolutely one you're going to be building, and I think, like I said, even Arena viable at this point. Krokmar, same issue as Razin. It doesn't do any debuffs, so the polymorph unity doesn't matter too much to it, and it won't supply anything for TEOX itself. Like, sure, you can shred a bit of their stats, which may help, but if we're assuming that you have every Lizardman in the game, you don't, unless you're one of those people with loads of money, which in that case, you probably do. And then nothing else but factions exist, you have better options. Now, TEOX himself, what if you had 2 of them? Then use both. I know there are people who at least got 2 of them, because some people just bought an absolute ton of Sacreds and went mental for this. And what's better than having 1 copy of a 16x attack AoE? Having 2 of them. If they weren't dead the first time, they're definitely dead the second time round. Again, having 2 of these, 2 of these. Now, obviously, ally attacks can't ally attack. Otherwise, if you had 2 copies of Lady Mikage and nothing else, you would 100-0 anything in the game off lots and lots and lots of uses of the A1 chained into each other. But yeah, if you have 2, use them both. Like, I couldn't even get 1. Sad. Krisk, again, I feel this champion needs next to no introduction at all, or explanation. You're already using him in Hydra like you are for this. You've got a bunch of debuffs here to feed TEOX'S passive. You can even use it as a provoke in Arena now, because you can't turn into a sheep off either this or this. And then you have some way to defend your team, which works especially well because TEOX himself has, well, 50% DR and then 20% for all of your teammates. So at that point, you don't even need a reviver because you straight up just don't take damage. So yeah, Krisk is very good. Roman 2, again, champion came out. It was really strong at first. Polymorph came along, ruined it entirely. But now, obviously, Legate's here. You can't get polymorphed anymore. You take all the buffs off them. They got the block passive, which means that things like Marichka passive, Taras passive won't work anymore. Sure, Romantu dies for doing so because of Taras Sato, but do all that, and then Legate kills them all, and the game is over. This is an absolute no-brainer to use alongside Lazarius if you have them. I mean, you almost have to have Romantu unless you're a pretty early game. And if you've got TEOX in your early game, because say you had like 5 Sacreds and got him, I'll cover that afterwards in terms of ones who are not other legendaries. Chugger, he was the original not Rathalos champ in the game before they made Rathalos Blade Master. I'm sure Monster Hunter fans will be happy about that. Well, I don't think they've even heard about this game. Lucky them, right? So, this is like good for control, otherwise just boosting a damage because of a decreased defense. And this, combined with this, 80% chance. Now, one thing I'm not sure about, because I've barely seen anyone ever mention this champion, is in Curse City and on Dragon Hard Stage 10, there are this champion, but this is bugged and just doesn't work at all. Because I've had times when I've not been paying attention, I've got poisoned, and then he just doesn't do anything at all. Also, this is still the worst skill of any Void Legendary at all. It has like about a 2.6x attack multiplier as a 1+1. Yeah, get an extra turn if you kill an enemy. Yeah, you might kill a Spiderling, but that's all you're killing with this. But apart from that, this can add up in terms of if you poison something that can be poisoned. So enemies or the 2 Hydra heads that poison actually works against, even though poison damage doesn't do much against them in the first place. Then it's going to add up with that, and you have this for TEOX'S himself. So yeah, not bad at all, not bad. And then there's Sulfurion. Now this is for one where if you have a good blessing for him, give him Incinerate, useless, take him to Arena, all their stone skins are gone. All of them. They think they're safe under their 85% DR overshield that blocks debuffs half the time, and that blocks debuffs and also defends itself half the time. But no, this gets rid of all of them, and then puts another debuff on them. And TEOX'S is, oh, what's that? Is that a debuff? And just permadeaths everything. So yeah, Sulfurion is not to be underestimated in that regard. Again, like Krisk and Nekamo, he's an excellent Hydra champion. Basically an indirect healer and indirect speed booster because of this combined with this. And he also has a completely free revive. I would say in terms of if you had them all as a free man for Hydra, then you have Nekamo, you have Krisk, and you have Sulfurion, which is a total of... which easily gets you the full 5 debuffs needed for this to have the extra 100% amp. And that's just with Nekomofar's, Krisk's Provoke, and Sulfurion's HP burn. And obviously, Krisk's passive can do 2 more, so at that point you're up to 7. Obviously, it doesn't go past 5, because I think this having 200% amp from 10 debuffs would be a little bit silly, even if it is a borderline exclusive champion who you won't be able to get most of the time. So that's all of those. Obviously for Arena there is like Lazarius Pythian, for PvE there is those, and the other are just if you're trying to make do. In terms of making do, we'll go over to a few of the epics that I think are okay-ish. Broadmoor, I know this seems kind of weird, but obviously we'll come Lizardman. He has a revive, which I think I buffed him at some point. This was a 7-turn cooldown, and now it's a 6, bucks down to 4. No turn meter, but you get block damage, so as long as you're not going against things that ignore block damage, they'll take a turn eventually. This is the added list as a buff, when really this should just give strong increased speed, and this does nothing. But if you need any kind of reviver at all, then yeah. Also, with epic empowerment in the game, it's really easy to get him to +4, so that's some extra stats there. In a way, I would, if I got TEOX'S, I would almost wishlist Broadmoor to get a 6-star soul for him, and then +4 him and just use him as this bootleg reviver for times when they try and take Pythian off me, or I'm just not allowed to use Pythian for whatever limited content. Scathix is just a cleanse and shield, might steal some buffs, might keep himself alive 1 turn longer when he needs to be. Obviously we have better cleanse in Pythian, but sometimes some early accounts might not have him. Again, Quaggan, people mention him, like, he's okay-ish. All I'm going to say is that he's okay-ish. The increased attack, it doesn't really matter for TEOX because he's applied it himself, but if you were using, say, Roxanne, then yeah, having increased attack and perfect veil are both two things that champion wants. And then there's the larger, who looks much better from the side, from the front, where just very, very thin. Because you have... This was like the faction unity before faction unity, and you have like some kind of healing, debuffs, etc. I've seen people use it for like early game Scarab because it kind of sustains pretty well and has the shields, but yeah. And is there anyone else for epics? Oh yeah, Jarek. Jarek is just if you need someone to keep you alive. He's still pretty good even today because of this passive, and this book's up to 60% chance, 65 with Sniper Mastery, and yeah, if you just need like someone who's going to keep you alive, if you don't have like Chris, because there's not really any other champions that provide ally protection in this faction, so yeah. Also, honourable mention to Harrispex, who is very, very small support. He revives someone, he speeds you up a bit, he might poison things slightly, and he has a bit of a speed aura for you, and also above average speed for a rare. So there's all of those. Is there anything else for me to mention? Probably not. Oh, one thing I will say is, even though I didn't get TEOX, I did finish up all of the Champ Chase tournament, and I managed to snipe the guy who was in first place, because I woke up about half an hour before it actually ended. So he'd have woken up that day and seen that. Oh, really? Wait, who is this YT KW Legends guy? Bet he's some kind of... Oh, really? I lost to this? Ugh. So, yeah, that's his day pretty firmly ruined. Anyway, that's this or that. Again, don't try and pull over him. You can't get him. Maybe he'll come back at some point, and we'll talk about something else tomorrow. If this was useful to you, then great. If it wasn't, then, well, sorry. I did my best. Actually, I can always do better. Can't we all, right? Anyway, that's all. See ya.